What's up, guys? I'm EJ, and this is Kendall here, and today we're going to be talking about the top point guards in the 2019 NBA draft. Now, Kendall, of course, point guards, they're becoming really the stars of the league. A lot of the most explosive, highest skill level players on many teams are the point guards, so they always garner a lot of attention. And here we have a decent group of class, one guy being at the top for a lot of people, but it should be a good discussion, kind of ranking these guys.
Yeah, point guard is interesting because if you draft a point guard, it's similar to the quarterback position where you better hope that you draft a star player because you're attached to that guy now for 3-4 years. And if he's not a star, you're probably going to be looking for another one. So it should be interesting.
Absolutely. So let's get right to it. So you want to go first? So rank your point guards 5 to 1.
All right, so at number 5, I've got Ty Jerome, who obviously was national champion at Virginia last year. Has led them pretty much since he was a sophomore. Been a high level guy for them. But he is a very interesting prospect because he's very, 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 very slow-footed. Not explosive at all. One of the least explosive prospects I've seen be considered a first-round guy, especially at the guard position. But he makes up for it for having extremely high basketball IQ, an extremely high feel for the game, being a great three-point shooter with deep, deep, deep NBA range. So all that being said, I think you're talking about a guy that I think could play on the ball, could play off the ball because of his shooting ability, has zero isolation game, but is great in pick and roll, great passer, low turnover guy. I think he's just a very high floor type of point guard where I think you draft him, he can play on 75% of the teams in the league from day one. So, I think Ty Jerome could be a good player, and he's somebody I would look at if I were a team drafting in the mid to late first round.
Ease up on my guy, Joe Willie here.
At number 4, I'm looking at Coby White, point guard from North Carolina, who I think Coby
Lower than most people.
Yeah, Coby White is a guy consensus the third point guard, clearly having 4, but I think he's a very solid point guard. I think he's a good shooter, good size. Can get to the rack, very fast in the open court, but I don't necessarily see all-star point guard. And again, if you're drafting somebody in the lottery, we're drafting a point guard in the top 10. Some people say you can go as high as 4. If I don't think you're going to be a superstar or an all-star, I would be hesitant to draft you that high. And I worry that I don't know if I see that from Coby White, who I think isn't necessarily a true point guard. I think somebody that could even improve some of his feel and his point guard instincts. But I think could be a solid player in the NBA. At number 3, I've got Darius Garland, who I think very, very much a risk because of he just didn't play that many games. Already had a knee injury to his track record.
And somehow his stock has risen.
Yeah, and his stock has risen. He went from a guy that was wasn't necessarily, he was probably gonna be one and done, but was a mid to late first round type guy to a top 5 pick after he got hurt. Shows you what happened with this draft class and people just seeing like, yeah, we don't necessarily need these guys that are going in the top 10, so let's go with Garland. Defensively, I don't know what he is because he didn't play conference play, didn't play against any great guards. He's 6'1", undersized. He's a great shooter off the bounce, great shooter off the catch, great in pick and roll. Can have a lot of NBA pro moves when it comes to scoring the basketball, but some Damian Lillard in his game. But at the same time, you worry about, is he Jeff Teague? Is he one of those guys where he's not really, because his point guard instincts are weak right now. He can develop those, but it's hard to develop instincts and feel for the game. So I look, Garland, I think if he is a 20-point scorer in the league, will be a very worthy pick in the top 5, top 10. If he's a 25-point scorer, I think he has the upside to do that. But if he's not, he's a backup point guard. I think there's really no in-between with Darius Garland, given the other stuff about his profile. Number 2, I got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who I think is kind of the opposite of the anti-Darius Garland, where I feel like he may not have the 25-point or 20-point ceiling that Darius Garland has, but I think like there's a good chance I think he's a starter for a lot of teams, regardless of even if he's not a 20-point scorer. I think he can play off the ball at the 2 if you need to move him there. I think He can be a floor general for you. I think he's somebody that he can average 15 points and 8 assists or 15 points and 6 assists and be solid. Very high feel for the game. Reminds me a lot of his cousin Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Big guard with a high feel for the game, high basketball IQ, can finish at the rim, can shoot it a little bit. Just a very high quality player who I think will be very good in the NBA given time. I think he could play from day one. But number one, you got Ja Morant. Very kind of an obvious pick. I think Morant is one of you would think he's one of the best point guards you've seen come out in a while. You look at, I would say the best since Markelle Fultz, and I would probably put him ahead of Trae Young. But I think Morant, there's a lot of great about him. We did a whole YouTube video about him. But the one thing I would say about Morant is, one, the point guard position is very tough. When was the last rookie point guard that we saw come in right away and contribute and dominate? Lillard was very good. He was kind of the last one, and Kyrie was the other guy. That really didn't have much of a learning curve. But the other thing is, look, given the level of competition he played against at Murray State, I think he's a guy that has a little bit of bust potential. I think more than most guys that you would draft in the top 5, because if it doesn't translate, it wouldn't shock me. It didn't translate for Cameron Payne, who also looked like he had all the moves in the book and had a high skill level. But once he got to the league, looked shell-shocked. I don't think that's going to be Ja Morant, because he has a confidence and a swagger about his game, and on the eye test scream superstar point guard. But just something to look out for.
Interesting. I'll go from 5 to 1 here. I'll start with Carson Edwards. Carson Edwards is a bucket getter. He's a scorer. Is not a guy I'm expecting to be a floor general, a guy to be a 10-year NBA starter as a point guard. But I think if you're looking for a guy who can come in and get buckets immediately, come in and make an impact, Carson Edwards is one of the guys I'm really keeping my eye on. Yes, he's undersized. Yes, he's not necessarily a facilitator, but he's a tough shot maker. And, people will look at some of the efficiency numbers and maybe get a little concerned. But in the NBA, you need guys that can hit tough shots, because the defense is going to be good. They're going to be high-level defenders, athletic defenders. You got to be the guy to go out and get buckets. Carson Edwards showed throughout his entire career at Purdue, including in that just sensational performance in the NCAA tournament, that he gets buckets. So I think he's a guy to look at. He kind of reminds you of like an Eddie House, Lou Williams, Nate Robinson is a guy I look at as too. Maybe not the athlete, but the scorer kind of player. I think that he's going to be a potentially an impact player. So I like Carson Edwards at 5. 4, I got Nickeil Walker-Alexander, which I thought was a pretty good spot for him, though you have him even higher. I like the kid's game. He's really smooth. He's got just excellent size for a point guard. He's about 6'6", long, lanky, can be a impact on both sides of the floor because of his length. I wish he was a little quicker, which is something that we talked about with Shai. I wish his handle was a little better. It's not bad, but Shai I think had a slightly better handle. He didn't have the responsibility of having to play the point guard all the time at at Virginia Tech. So I would like to see if he can do that role and deal with that kind of ball pressure on a consistent basis, because playing the primary ball handler at Virginia Tech, he was hit or miss sometimes, depending on the defender. So, but the kid can really shoot. He can really get to the basket, despite not being the quickest guy. And like you said, he's got a great feel for the game. So I like him. He's 4 for me. I got Garland at 3. Garland, to me, is the biggest wild card in this draft between him and Bol. I know the numbers in terms of his scoring were, just off the charts when it came to efficiency and the field goal percentage and 3-point percentage, but I just don't know what to take of that from 4 or 5 games. And then some of the negative, like you talk about his terrible, turnover to assist ratio and his inability to really get guys involved. Like, was that a bad sample with 4 or 5 games where he didn't really get anybody involved? He was just looking for a shot. I don't know. Obviously, there's high school tape of him. He's kind of been known as a scorer, but he's just such a wild card for me. I would be scared to take him in the top 5. I would be scared to take him over the guys I have at 2 and 1, because I just think there's a lot of question marks about him. He reminds me a lot of, you mentioned Jeff Teague. I think that's the one he reminds me a lot about. And also, I like Reggie Jackson. Both very, very efficient and very scary in the high pick and roll. And that's where they're going to get their buckets, and he's the same way. 2, I got Coby White. I'm high on Coby White. I think he's really good. He reminds me a lot of Chauncey Billups. Great size for a point guard, strong, excellent shooter, excellent in the pull-up game on transition, which is very much where Chauncey made his money as well. he has to work on his feel for the game. Sometimes he plays too fast, something that Charleston never had to deal with. But I think some of that has to do with his system. North Carolina, they like to push the ball and push the ball and push the ball and push the ball. So I think he was trained to play that way. I think Roy wanted him playing 100 miles an hour. I think with an NBA coaching, different system, we won't see him play that way. He'll play a little more under control. He's really good. I like him. I think he's what you want in a scoring guard in the NBA today. So he's 2. And I got Morant at number 1. This really isn't much of a debate. I don't really agree with him being a bust potential for me. Some guys just got it. I know a lot of people weren't high on Steph Curry when he came out. I was super high on Steph Curry because sometimes you see enough games against big competition and say, okay, I've seen enough. I saw him in the NCAA tournament. I saw him in non-conference play against SEC competition. The guy's got it. He's an all-star type of guard. I think he's going to be a franchise kind of player for whoever drafts him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Morant. I think the comparison I throw out is John Wall. I think that's the guy he very much reminds me of. John Wall, Kentucky, the athleticism, the scoring ability, the passing ability. I think he's got it all to be a franchise point guard in the NBA. I think Carson Edwards, I mean, I'm not high on Carson Edwards. I think for me, he would be a mid-second round guy that I would look at, mid to late second round. Defensively, I don't know who he's guarding.
He's not going to be able to guard anybody. I don't disagree with that.
For me, he kind of reminds me of Quinn Cook. He's better than Quinn Cook. I think if the Warriors drafted him, he'd have a Quinn Cook type role. And maybe Quinn Cook's better than we think. I don't know.
Quinn Cook's a decent player. He's a decent player. Shade. I think he's better than Quinn Cook.
I think he's a guy. I think he can play, but I mean, I wouldn't want him as my starter. I'd want him, very much bench scoring, second unit, 8th, 9th, 10th man type of guy. For me, if we're talking about guys that we didn't have on the list that I also thought about, I thought about Jalen LeCue. He's a point guard from high school who, Brewster Academy, doing a year prep school, but is not
very impressive athlete.
The most outside of Zion, the most athletic player in the draft.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of Hami Diallo a little bit, in terms of the athletic profile. But he's a point guard. So he has, of course, he has more point guard skills, higher feel for the game, a little shorter. But I think he's a guy I would take a shot on, really late first round or early second round. Rather than maybe some of these other guys who can contribute. I don't know if LeCue can play. I don't know if he can play college basketball. He might not. He might have been an overrated prospect, but I would take the shot considering his athleticism.
I like Lou Dort from Arizona State. I know you love Lou Dort. He was right outside the top 5 for me. Basketball IQ very low.
I don't think he's a point guard, so
and he might not really be.
If he's my point guard, I'm in trouble. I'm like,
but I think that considering his he's about 6'3", 6'4". He dominates the ball a lot.
He's undersized.
He's a lead guard to me. Even if you got another point guard, he's gonna be dominating the ball. So I think he ends up kind of being your de facto point guard. I think in a second unit, I think you be. Okay.
He might have to play point guard.
Yeah,
which is why I don't really love him. For me, Norman Powell would be the example. I think he could play a Norman Powell role. Marcus Smart.
Right?
They're both about 6'4".
Okay. Yeah.
Marcus Smart, Oladipo. That's the guy I kind of thought. Off the ball type. I think Oladipo's his really that's his ceiling.
That's he hit a grand slam in terms of maxing out his potential.
I think Smart is probably the more realistic. If he's a quality player, I think Powell's also a quality player, but Powell's probably the most realistic comparison for me.
And I like Jerome. Jerome was outside my top 5 too. I do agree the foot speed and the athletic issues are there, but
who's he defending? Because he was a great defender in college, but he played in a system that was
it's a pack line style where you're not really out pressuring the ball as much. You're keeping guys from the paint, which is a little easier to do in the NBA. He's going to be having a lot more issues with high pick and rolls because you got guys who can shoot from 35 feet out playing point guard now. So you can't really play that pack line.
Graves Vasquez is in the league. He reminds me of Graves Vasquez, but he's not in the league for a reason.
That's true, but Graves Vasquez was good for a while though.
He's very good. I love Graves Vasquez.
Graves Vasquez was good. I agree. I think that's a good comparison. He's a better shooter than Graves was.
Yes.
So I think Jerome can play. I like him. Him missing my top 5 wasn't any shade. He just missed out for me. Other guys look at Shamari Pons from St. John's, undersized, but another guy who's a scorer. To me, he's kind of like a poor man's Carson Edwards in some ways. And look out for Tremont Waters. Small, but floor general, clutch player, tough off the bounce. I think he's someone to pay attention to. But I think that's a good place to wrap the video, guys. So who do you think are the top guards in this draft? Make sure you leave a comment on your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, New Generation Media, and make sure you check out our podcast on the New Generation Podcast Network on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and TuneIn. That's Kendall. I'm EJ. Take it easy, guys. Peace.